Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, here with another episode of the Steelers Preview. We are back. It's been a while. Last week was the chaos that was the NFL draft. It's hard to believe it's been an entire week since we've been. I kind of think it's kind of like a hangover for me. It's you're spending so much time in front of the computer and the television. It's just very arduous at times. But nonetheless, here we are, the three amigos, all back together. Bryan, Anthony Davis, welcome back. How are you doing?
Very good, Jefferson. It's post-draft. I'm still feeling good. I'm loving all 9 of these guys, and I've been talking about them all week to my friends. I've even ordered my Devin Bush jersey today.
Ooh, very nice.
Much excitement.
Well, I tell you one guy who's not ordering a Deontay Johnson jersey, and that is Dave Schofield. Dave, welcome to the show. How you doing?
You're right. I'm not ordering a Deontay Johnson jersey because he doesn't have a number yet. I got to wait for him to get his number before I can order that puppy.
Which, speaking of jerseys,
you could just read my article.
I loved that article. That article was great.
Speaking of jersey numbers, how did anyone else see? I mean, everyone knew the image of Devin Bush where he went to Michigan State and stomped on the logo of the Trojan, the giant painted Trojan in the middle of the field. And then I find out he's wearing number 55. And I'm thinking, this is PZ 2.0, right? I mean, this guy's going to have that edge that we haven't seen since Joey Porter. I mean, you agree, disagree? Dave?
Oh, yeah.
I could see it. I mean, it's a lot different, though, when you're when you're kind of like the captain of the team in college versus coming into the pros. So it'll take him a little bit to get there, but if the ability backs it up, I think he'll be there very soon.
What about you, Bryan?
He loves to trash talk. He's that kind of guy. I love the Michigan State video. I'm going to be honest with you, though. This is my Steeler hypocrisy, because if he was drafted to the Bengals, I would call him the biggest punk of all time after seeing that video. That's just where my hypocrisy lies. But the other thing with Devin Bush, the other reason for 55 is Derek Brooks, his godfather.
That's a good point that I forgot about. That's a really good call there. Yeah, Joey Porter was always that guy that Steeler fans absolutely adored because he fought a Cleveland Brown before a game. He called out Jeremy Stevens before the Super Bowl. He walked around with his jersey pulled up so you could see his abs just barking at the other team. Every other team hated his guts, but Steeler fans loved him. And I kind of feel that's probably the way. But you know what? Joey Porter wasn't dirty. He played the game clean. He wasn't dirty because you want to compare it to maybe like Vontaze Burfict to the Bengals, but Burfict was dirty. I'm trying to think of a good comparison because it was, think of a defender that if he was on your team, for me, it was always on offense, it was Chad Ochocinco. You hated his guts, but if he were a Steeler, oh my gosh, I would have loved him. Would have loved every second of it. Can you guys think of any comparisons there?
Oh, I could give you an easy one. People are going to just go crazy when I say this. You would love Tom Brady if he was a Steeler. You would love, I mean, you'd love almost anybody. I'm going to say this. You guys everyone's going to get pissed. You would love Vontaze Burfict if he was a Steeler.
I don't know. I don't like dirty players.
Yeah, I know, but it would be tough because I didn't like Mike Mitchell because I thought Mike Mitchell was dirty, but I'm still rooting for him, and then I tried to like him. So you don't know, but there's a possibility you would. I could go back to Greg Lloyd. I know he's a Steeler, but he would show off his abs. He was just like Joey. He was that kind of guy that he counted a guy out in 1989. He counted Ryan from the Jets after he sacked him. He knocked him out and did the 3 count on the turf, and everyone started hating him then. But it wasn't dirty. He was just Greg Lloyd.
All right, Dave, before we move on, can you think of any comparisons or comps to a player that played on another team that Steeler fans love to hate but would love them if they were on their roster?
I'm really racking my brain for this one because all I can think of is Steelers that I know everyone else hates that we love, like a Hines Ward. But I mean, Ray Lewis, I couldn't really stand Ray Lewis as a player, although I did kind of respect that he was good and everything. But I mean, if he was a Steeler, I know I'm sure I would have embraced him pretty much.
Maybe T Sizzle. We would have loved T Sizzle.
T Sizzle, yes. I still disagree with Perfect. A lot of people would say the Hines Ward was dirty, but what he did at the time was within the legal boundaries of the game. He didn't. They created the Hines Ward crackback rule after he broke Keith Rivers' jaw. But until then, he didn't do anything illegal. He wasn't diving at guys' knees. He wasn't cheap. So that's why I would still disagree with you there on Perfect. But that's for another discussion altogether. Got on a quick sidebar. If you didn't know, Devin Bush, we're going to talk about him later in the show a lot. He's the focus of today's episode because what we're going to do is we're going to highlight each one of these 9 draft picks each and every week leading up to, 9 weeks. That's going to be right into the dog days of summer where we don't have much news. And so today's highlighted player is going to be Devin Bush. But before we get to that, let's talk about another first-round draft pick. Tomorrow, May 3rd, or if you're listening to this in audio form or watching it on May 3rd, today is the day that the Steelers have to make their decision on Artie Burns' 5th-year option. Now, they have picked up every player's 5th-year option since it became available except for one. Jarvis Jones, his 5th-year option was declined. Reports are that now they'll have 2, that Artie Burns is not going to have his option picked up. Wouldn't shock anyone. But Dave, I'll ask you first. What are your thoughts on Artie Burns and his career trajectory since being that first-round draft pick years ago?
I'm working on an article to come out whenever I can get it done about how would we view Artie Burns if he wasn't a first-round pick. I just have several different scenarios of different draft classes of if you swapped out where someone was picked, how would we look at these players differently because we put that numerical value with them. But Artie Burns, I think his head would be so much better if he wouldn't have been that first pick. And I think his head might be better knowing that he's not getting the deal. Or it could be worse. It's really in between his ears is what's holding him back right now more than anything. His confidence is shot. I don't know if not picking up the option is going to inspire him or just completely destroy his confidence because every time I think that maybe he's going to show himself, he doesn't. So we just got to wait and see.
Bryan, what do you think?
Fight or flight time for Artie Burns, really. I mean, he's playing for his football life now. I mean, he could audition for other teams or he could audition for the Steelers. I mean, there's a possibility that he has a great season and they're looking at him. I'm not sure how everything works with that option. When you decline the option, if he has a great year, Dave, what happens?
He becomes a free agent when free agency hits. Of course, the Steelers could sign him long-term before free agency. They're the only ones, just like any other player. So, yeah, it's not like they don't have any access to him. It's just that he'll hit free agency after year 4.
Okay. But, I feel bad for the guy. I mean,
yeah,
I really thought...
they have the inside rights on him. Go ahead, Bryan.
Yeah, I just feel bad. I mean, he seems like a great kid. He's Dave's right. It is between his ears right now. He just can't get it going. I mean, the first year he looked so promising. He really looked like I think he was all rookie team possibly. I mean, he really looked like he could be something. But it just hasn't worked out, and you can't put an option on a guy like that. And you can't say, well, you put the option on Bud Dupree. That's a completely different story. They don't have the depth at outside linebacker, and Bud Dupree has played maybe not up to first round expectations, but he has kept a starter role. He has 20 sacks in his 4-year career. He has not been a liability. Artie's been a liability. So that's why this option has been declined.
Okay, so Bryan, quick answer. Artie Burns will be on the 53-man roster in 2019. True or false?
True.
Dave?
I'm going to say true for 2019 and then false for 2020.
So you think he's going to make the team this year and then he'll be gone after this year?
I think they're going to give him all the chance to show himself this year unless he just looks that bad, or if by some miracle someone would throw in a 5th or 6th or even 7th round pick for him if they feel like they have tons of depth.
It'll be interesting. And now, Dave, you said there's another important date coming up, not just the May 3rd deadline for 5th-year options. What's that?
Yes, on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, because it's always the second Tuesday after the draft. I got to think that would be May the 7th, correct? This coming Tuesday is the last. Is once we hit that day, any free agents signed do not count in the compensatory formula. So that's one of those days that some teams could be waiting for to sign additional free agents, so they didn't have the penalty of that taking away a possible compensatory draft pick. So as long as the Steelers don't sign any other qualifying free agents, they will have lost more than they gained, and they will be eligible for a pick.
Okay. Yeah. So a lot of teams, I've heard a lot of reports about the Patriots, how they will wait because they really value this compensatory draft picks, and they know the equation, or at least well enough that they can manipulate it, and they're going to make sure they get those additional draft picks. So today, instead of having a Stat Geek segment, we are, in lieu of that, going to have a different segment, which is kind of a grading segment. We're not grading the Steelers 2019 draft class or anything like that. Dave, explain to the listeners out there or viewers what's going to be happening today instead of the Stat Geek segment.
All right, this was an idea that Jeff threw my way for something, and I thought it would be a good thing to put in place of the Stat Geek. It's still kind of looking at some things like this. We'll crunch some numbers here along the way, but it's looking at all of the draft day trades under Kevin Colbert and looking at them now, seeing how we feel about them. How would we grade them now after the fact? We're not going to look at the Devin Bush trade because obviously we don't know what's going to happen there. We want to at least have players to have a chance to get on the field. So we'll start with his first draft day trade, and we're going to just real quick with you guys. What we're going to say, we'll give it a letter grade to see what you guys think. And it all started in 2001 when the Steelers actually traded down in the first round. They had the 16th pick overall. They traded to the Jets for Santana Moss. They traded back 3 spots to the 19th pick, where they took Casey Hampton. They also picked up a 4th round and a 6th round pick in the same year. Oh my goodness, Matthias Nquenti, if I can, Bryan might help me with that name, and Rodney Bailey. Yep, those were the other 2 players that the Steelers drafted in that draft. So they picked up a 4 and a 6 by trading back 3 spots in the first, and all they missed out on for the time being was a guard and a tackle that was drafted in between, and they had already just taken Plexico Burress the year before, so they didn't need Santana Moss. So what do we think of that draft or that trade?
Bryan, go ahead.
Well, you got to give it a thumbs up. You got to give it an A, and the reason you're giving it an A is you got the guy you wanted in Big Snack three picks later, and you got some guys in Rodney Bailey and Matthias Nquenti that lasted a few years. Matthias was on the offensive line. He added some depth. Those guys stuck around. They weren't complete no names. In fact, a true story. I once was outbid on eBay for Matthias Nquenti's pants, game used pants.
Good to know.
Yeah.
I wonder if they would have fit.
You know what's funny about that? I actually bought BJ Finney's pants for $20 last year, and I'm thinking this guy's 320, and that's bigger than what I am, and I'm going to buy his pants. They're going to fit. I actually have a picture that I think Jeff's seen the picture. Dave, you haven't, of me trying on the pants and being really upset that they were really snug. I don't know how these guys get into them.
All right. I'm going to give this, like Bryan said, I'm going to give this draft trade an A, because you got, regardless of the 4th and 6th, you got your guy in the first that was your solid nose tackle for a long time. And so if you get that and you get extra picks with that, it's a good trade. I'll take an A. What's the next one?
Well, I was going to say I would also give it an A, because anytime like you said, you only traded back 3 spots. You still got the guy that you would have got otherwise, and you picked up 2 extra picks regardless of how they turned out. That's a good trade. All right, the next one's in the same year, the very next round. In the second round, the Steelers then traded up. They traded up from the 50th pick um, up to the 39th pick. To get Kendrell Bell. They traded with the Patriots. They swapped picks and they gave up a 4th-round pick. Now, what's interesting is they did not give up the same 4th-round pick that they had just got. They would have had back-to-back picks, but they gave up the second of those 2 picks. The players with that, the Patriots traded both those picks. So the 2 players were Dominic Raiola and Carlos Polk. Not that it matters, but the Steelers traded up to get Kendrell Bell.
Let me go first here, Bryan. This is going to sound crazy, but I'm going to give this an A because Kendrell Bell there's no way the Steelers could have projected his ankles to be that bad and constantly be hindered. He was a defensive rookie of the year, and he looked like he was going to man the middle for a long, long time. And it's always a soft spot for me because after his defensive rookie of the year, that was a Christmas gift. I got a Kendrell Bell jersey. You move up to get those type of players. And like I said, I don't think there's any test, there's any x-ray, there's any scan that could have shown that that he was, had these type of injury problems. This is the same argument that Bryan makes when it comes to Senquez Golson. You had no idea that he was going to be that injury prone, yet here we are. That doesn't necessarily negate the pick itself. Am I right, Bryan? This is what you always say about the cornerback stuff. So yeah. I still think this was a good trade up because if Kendrell Bell's ankles weren't complete crap, they drafted a really good inside linebacker. So I'm going to give it an A. Bryan, you might disagree.
No, I was going to give him an A as well because you realize where a guy is that you could trade up and go ahead and get him. He's tops on your board, and he justified that, especially being Defensive Rookie of the Year. What happens after that? You can't fault a guy for getting injured, and you really can't. You got 2 very solid years out of the guy, and then it kind of fell apart. He went to Kansas City, but did nothing in Kansas City. The guys that they traded away, Dominic Raiola actually started for the Detroit Lions on the offensive line, but they got a guy in Naquente anyways in the 4th round to replace that. So it was kind of a wash. That's a good deal. I love the fact that Colbert right away was going for it, knowing to trade down, trade up, get extra picks to go ahead and build upon, and then seeing the guy that he wants and not afraid to go grab him.
Yeah, I liked it too. I gave it an A. I think it's almost you kind of got to look at them together because you moved up 11 spots to get your guy, but you had 2 picks right there back to back in the 4th round, so you traded one of them. So it basically you still got your guy in the 1st, used one of the picks. It felt like you had more equity from what you gained there in order to give up a different pick to go get Bell. So we all have an A on that one. Here's the big one. Here's the 2003 1st round trading up 11 spots to the 16th overall pick. Troy Polamalu.
A.
Yep. We're all going to give that an A.
Just to quote Fonzie, A.
Just to make sure we realize this, they gave up a 1, a 3, and a 6. The 1 ended up being Larry Johnson. The 3 ended up being Julian Battle. And the 6 got traded, ended up being Brooks Bollinger. Which is funny because those are actually 3 names of people that ended up being all right. But you got Polamalu. It's an A. Quick question, little trivia question. Who is the only player from that draft in the NFL, the 2003 draft, that is still an active player in the NFL? There's only 1 player drafted in 2003 that's still in the NFL.
I got it.
And he was drafted before Polamalu. What do we got?
Sizzle.
Yep, that's correct. Terrell Suggs. Only player from the 2003 draft still left in the NFL. Wow. So here we go. The next year, 2004, the Steelers traded up in the 2nd round. They traded up 6 spots for Ricardo Coakley. This is after they drafted Big Ben. And then they traded to the Colts for, they also gave up their 4th round pick. This one, I don't know if it's as much as the trade as who they ended up drafting, because the Colts ended up getting Bob Sanders
Yep,
and then
I know.
and then Kendall Pope.
I've been talking about that Sanders thing for a long time.
That's
Coakley
true.
Coakley from Tusculum, right, Dave? Because they got
That's
this wrong
correct.
a couple weeks ago.
Tusculum.
Horrible trade. Horrible trade. I know they were going for a corner, but they had a defensive back right there. I know they got Troy Polamalu the year before, but could you imagine a defensive backfield with Sanders and Polamalu back there?
Oh my.
Jeez.
So what's your actual letter grade?
Oh, I give it a D.
D. Yep.
That's where I was going with it. It was a D. I hate to say an F. I mean, Coakley did play. How many years did he play, Brian? Do you have that?
Two and a half.
Got this. No, he played 4 years for the Steelers. No, he never started a game. Did not have one start for the Steelers. He played in 16 games as a rookie, 14 his second year, and his third and fourth year only played in 3 games in each season.
No.
And he also blew a game. He blew a game. Week 3 against Cincinnati in 2006. He muffed a punt, completely blew that game that they would have won, and that game would have had them in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, I'll change that to an F for you there, Jeff.
There you go. Thank you.
I'll be honest with you. That was one of those things that, like, hey, you moved up 6 spots in the second round. You gave up a 4th. That's not terrible, but it's what you did with it. It's how it ended up playing out. Maybe Tusculum should have been a red flag. So we'll keep rolling. 2006, once again, in the first round. See, last time they did it in the first round, Steelers trading up for Santonio Holmes.
Hey.
Yep, they moved up 7 spots. Had to give up a 3 and a 4, so they gave up in the first Matthias Kiwanuka, then in the third Jarris Wilkinson, and then the fourth Guy Wimper, who ended up spending a year with the Steelers anyway. Brian says A.
A.
Yep,
well,
that was a good one too.
Guy Wimper was a horrible Steeler too. That guy sucked.
Well, if you all read my article this week, I referenced this trade because I showed how this trade actually ended up to Deontay Johnson, who Jeff claims that I hate. Also in 2006, in round 3, round 2, the Steelers traded down. They would have had the last pick in round 2, and they traded it to Minnesota, who came up 19 spots. They also picked up an additional 3rd round pick there. So they traded the last pick in the 2nd round, who Minnesota took Tavares Jackson. The Steelers then picked up Anthony Smith and Willie Reed in place of that. But there was only one other defensive back taken in between those picks, and that was Ashton. I always want to say Yabuti, but it's not. I
thought it was Yabuti.
Is it Yabuti?
I think it's Yabuti.
Buffalo. Yeah. So it's spelled Youboty.
Are we still talking about football?
10, Yabuti. But anyway, so they traded back 19 spots and picked up an extra 3rd round pick.
Anthony Smith was awful, and Willie Reed didn't do much either. I'm going to give that a D.
You're going to give that a D.
I give that trade a B.
You give it a B? Yep.
I'll tell you why. You lost a pick because of the Santonio trade. You're going for it. You're going after these guys. You didn't want Tavares Jackson, so that's fine. You're just making moves. I thought it was a good move. The picks didn't work out, but those guys, Anthony Smith was projected higher, and so was Willie Reed. So, I mean, I like the move. The players just didn't work out.
Yeah, and sometimes that once you get to the 3rd round and on, you can't really guarantee that they're always going to work out. So I'm going to split the difference, you guys. I'm going to give it a C. It was a smart move to make. I just don't know that they made the most of it, if you know what I mean. So, here's Jeff's favorite. This is Jeff's most favorite draft day trade of all time, I'm sure, for 2007. I don't even know if he remembers this, that the Steelers traded up 7 spots in the 4th round in order to draft Daniel Sepulveda. gave up a sixth-round pick. They traded with Green Bay. Green Bay drafted Alan Barbie, and within the sixth round, they drafted Mason Crosby.
That's an F. Sepulveda, first off, you're taking a kicker in the fourth round. I don't care if it's a punter or a place kicker. You're taking a specialist in the fourth round. That's a ridiculous reach. Secondly, the guy couldn't kick the ball without tearing an ACL. F. Fat F.
Ryan.
I'm going to go ahead and give that a D. You know, even though they got some good play when he was there, I did want to correct something that I saw the other day. Somebody mentioned that he won a Super Bowl with the Steelers. He didn't. But he has a ring, but he did not play in any of the Super Bowls. In fact, the 2008, it was Mitch Berger that had to go ahead and replace him because he was hurt. In 2010, even though they didn't win that Super Bowl, they had to go ahead and pick up, gosh, I forget the Penn State kid's name, Justin Kapanos.
Yeah.
And
Jeremy
Kapanos.
Yes.
I was thinking of Justin Kirpakis, who the Steelers also had. But Jeremy Kapanos, he was from Penn State. But Kapanos, who they had to bring in. So it's a D. I agree with Jeff. You could get, the only guy that's worse than taking a punter is Colin Holba and a holder and a long snapper at that point. Excuse me, not a holder, a long snapper. I just take something else. Plus, you gave up. Mason Crosby still in the league.
That's true.
Yep. Well, and here's the thing. You traded up for a punter. You traded up in the fourth round for a punter. That's a big fat F for me. All right.
Bad.
So here we go. 2008, the Steelers traded down in the fourth round. This is probably not that big of a deal. We don't even remember. They traded down 7 spots with the Giants in the fourth round. The Giants traded up for Bryan Kehl. The Steelers got in the fourth round Tony Hills, and then in the sixth round they got an extra pick where they got Ryan Mundy, the answer to one of our wonderful trivia questions we had for our contest. Virginia. So this one's tough because when you get that low in the draft, you usually don't think that the trades mean much. But
Mundy played special teamers, played some safety here or there. Spot played for if Ryan Clark was hurt. I'll give it a C. I don't know. It's average.
I'll give that a B, and the reason being, Mundy was important to that team. But Tony Hills, even though he didn't play for the Steelers, had a long career with the Denver Broncos. He was in the league for an awful. I think till about 2017, he was there that long. He had a long playing career. Just it wasn't in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I'm going to give that. What did I say? I'm going to give that one a B as well, just because I thought, you 7 spots in the fourth round and you gain an extra pick. That's a good, smart move. And the fact that you got someone that did contribute with you for a while in that extra pick is, it's a positive thing. So rolling on, we got 2009. We're getting there, guys. We're almost done. This was one that I know that Bryan's talked about in the past, where the Steelers traded down. They traded their second round pick, which was 64th overall, to the Denver Broncos when they took Richard Quinn. They also had to throw in their 4th round pick, but they picked up 2 third round picks from the Broncos. So they gave up their 2nd and their 4th to get 2 thirds. They ended up trading down 15 spots, and then another pick 5 picks later. So they got Craig Urbick and Mike Wallace in that draft. They got Wallace by getting that extra pick.
In that case, I'm gonna give it I'll give it a B, because as turdish as Mike Wallace was when he left, I don't even know if that's a word. He was a turd when he left. He was really good when he was with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he was a one-trick pony, but that one-trick pony scored a lot of touchdowns, and I will never for the rest of my life forget the touchdown that he caught with 0 ticks left on the clock against the Green Bay Packers at Heinz Field to win one of the craziest football games I have ever
that was
seen
insane.
in my entire life. And so for that, I give it a B because Mike Wallace was, when he was in Pittsburgh, I was pretty sweet.
I'm too easy here. I'm giving this an A. And the reason I'm giving an A, the one guy that they kept that was their own pick in that draft was Joe Burnett. He wasn't that big of a deal. Craig Urbick, they didn't give him much of a chance, but he played for Buffalo. He's still in the league. I don't believe he's still with Buffalo. He might be with Miami, but he was on the offensive line out of Wisconsin for a long, long time, and so that's they picked a good player. They just didn't stick with him. And then you have Mike Wallace. What can you say about him? I mean, when he left, it hurt because he was the playmaker on the team. I agree with Jeff that he was a one-trick pony. I believe that he was a complete smack. I hated this guy when he left because he was such a jerk about it. And he was the leader of that Young Money crew, which we don't have respect for any of those three guys, Emmanuel Sanders included. Antonio Brown now. I mean, that was just a bad stable of Brat Packish jerks, and he was the leader of it. But pure football, that's a great deal.
I'm going to agree with that. I'm going to go with the A there as well because, once again, this was another answer to one of our trivia questions from our contest with Craig Urbick. He played 100 games in the NFL, and I'm not sure if he's still active or not. That's a great question, but we know Mike Wallace is. What happened with Urbick was it was 2 dogs, 1 bone. They had 1 roster spot, and an undrafted rookie ended up beating him out for the spot. That was Ramon Foster. So you can't fault the Steelers for keeping the undrafted rookie free agent because rather than a 3rd round pick, because that's worked out for him pretty well too. So 2010, here's one that shouldn't take too long to grade. This is in the 5th round. The Steelers traded down out of the 5th round with Arizona, who picked John Skelton. The Steelers got Arizona's 6th round pick, which they drafted Antonio Brown, and the Steelers also got Bryant McFadden back from Arizona after going there for a year. So, Bryan,
Go ahead, Bryan.
I mean, come on, we got to go A+ on this, even though you just don't know what you're getting. You just don't know what you're getting in the 6th round. I mean, maybe it's luck. Or maybe it's the fact that they scouted this guy and said, I mean, we know he's there, but, you're trading down, you're getting extra picks. You're getting a corner back in McFadden that, helped you back to the Super Bowl, veteran presence. And then you get Antonio Brown, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. So with that being said, I mean, A.
All right, that was an easy one. So 2012, here's one that we're going to love. In the 4th round, the Steelers traded up. They traded up 8 picks to get is it Alameda or Alamada Teamu? Remember him?
Oh yeah.
They traded with Washington, who got it doesn't matter who they got, but they moved up 8 picks and had to give up their 6th rounder as well. It was Keenan Robinson and Tom Compton was who the Redskins drafted. But what do you think of that one?
F.
That guy got arrested.
Yeah, he was awful. Yeah. Awful.
I'll just go D. just to be different. We got 2 left. 2013, Steelers traded up in the 4th round. Well, I say they traded up. Technically this wasn't a trade up.
I know where you're going.
Yeah, technically it wasn't a trade up because they didn't give up any other pick in that draft. The Steelers grabbed an extra pick in the 4th round to draft Shamarko Thomas and gave up their 3rd round pick the next year.
F. Well, D-.
D-.
Yeah, I mean, I'll actually echo D-. Shamarko was a nice kid. He's like Artie Burns. He was raising his family. He was one of those guys that I mean, both his parents passed away, and he was the breadwinner. And he took like 4 kids in, the same as Artie Burns. So just a really good citizen. I met him once. I just really liked talking to him. I thought he was a nice guy. He just could not get off of special teams, and he was anointed. He was there to be the guy in the defensive backfield, and at the time you thought you got this great deal, and it turned out to be really bad.
Yeah, my biggest thing is there's to give up a 3rd round pick because you want a guy the next year because you want a guy in the 4th round now seems a little bit much there. So here's our last one because we're not doing the Bush one. I don't even know that we can even grade this one, but we'll try. Here's your draft there, Jeff. This was 2018. They went 5 years without trading any draft picks.
Yeah.
They went from 2013 to 2018, where they traded up 3 spots in the 3rd round from 79 to 76 to grab Mason Rudolph. They traded with Seattle, who got Rasheem Green and Alex McGaw.
I'm going to give this an I for incomplete.
I was going to say that's a possibility.
We've only seen the kid play preseason. I mean, you and I, Dave, can sit here and talk about how we love the pick, and I did like the pick. He was a quarterback that a lot of people had a 1st-round grade on, and you got him in the 3rd, and so you moved up. You kept him from being a Bengal. He should be forever grateful for that. But at the same time, I'll give it an incomplete because how are you supposed to grade 4 preseason games? But I'm sure Bryan will. Go ahead, Bryan.
You know what? I love the move, and this was also because of the Martavis Bryant trade.
Yep.
This was made possible because of that. Hey, they saw a guy, they went up and moved for him. I'm going to give it a solid B, just for the fact I'm not grading the draft pick because we don't know enough about him. You're absolutely correct, but the thing is, you went and got your guy. You screwed Cincinnati. Hell, A.
See, I'm kind of the same way as Bryan. I'm saying I'm giving it an A for a smart move because they gave up a 7th. They gave up a 7th round pick to move ahead of Cincinnati, who would have, if anything, it was great to keep Cincinnati from getting the quarterback with a first round grade in the 3rd round. Although that's not why they did it. They did it because they wanted him as well. So I love the move with that, but I really think it's more of an incomplete just because we still need to see what Rudolph is going to end up doing, which might take us 3 more seasons until we can do that. So, of course, we do not know what to do with the trade in 2019 yet. Hopefully, we can maybe grade that sometime soon after next season.
Well, it might be, it might be sooner than later that we'll get to grade this draft pick, and it's going to be a good segue. I had no idea they had that many draft trades. I didn't remember all those.
I was trying to go fast.
So if you're still with us, I thank you. We're getting to Devin Bush now. This is the preview portion of the show where we're going to break down Devin Bush, and a lot of people want to know, what can fans expect? And on my Steelers burning question last night, if you haven't heard that, you can watch it on YouTube or you can go and listen to it on audio form. I asked the question, is he going to, and he being Devin Bush, live up to the hype? And I talked about the pressure of being a 1st-round pick, but not just a 1st-round pick, but for a pick that a team gave up so much draft capital to move up 10 spots. They haven't drafted in the top 10 since they drafted Plexico Burress. And so, my goodness, is this kid going to live up to the hype? And so what Dave and Bryan did is they went back. Bryan went all the way back to, I think he said 1472, because that's what Dave requested. And he found every single statistical category for line. No, he didn't. I'm just joking. What we were doing is, let's be honest, what does everyone think that Devin Bush is going to be? He's going to be Ryan Shazier's replacement. He is the first time that fans can sit there and say, I think they might have found Ryan Shazier's replacement. So what do? Let's compare him to Ryan Shazier. So, Bryan, you were supposed to look up combine tangibles, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. So why don't you run those down? We'll go combine tangibles first. I know Dave has some on-field stuff from when they were both in college in terms of Ohio State and Michigan. So, Bryan, go ahead.
Okay, if we go ahead and look at the 40-yard dash, it's kind of incomplete here for Ryan Shazier. And the reason being is that Shazier did not finish at the combine. So he actually pulled a hamstring during the run. They're calling it they're not calling it an official time, but if it was an official time, it would have been the fourth highest in that entire draft, with the number one being Dree Archer, who because Pittsburgh was drafting for speed that year because they drafted Dree Archer. Second was Brandon Cooks from Oregon State. Third was John Brown. We know how fast those guys are. And then there was Shazier with a 4.36. But if you look at his official time, they're calling it a 4.58. But so there's some discrepancy there. He did not perform at his pro day because he was injured as well. And I know there was a lot of talk about that. The fact, will he be ready? Will he be okay when he's drafted because of that injury? Devin Bush ran a 4.43. So, to me, that's pretty close. They talk about Bush being a sideline to sideline guy. That's exactly what Ryan Shazier was, a 3-down backer. I mean, right there, you have pretty close. Pretty close numbers there. As far as everything else, height, you have Shazier at 6'1". Devin Bush is 5'11". Shazier was 233 when drafted. Devin Bush is 244. Do we have to get into the arms and hands? If you really want those numbers, you could go ahead and email Jeff Hartman. I'll give out his email address later. But he'll be glad to look all that stuff up. Favorite breakfast cereal I don't have, and so I don't know. So I do apologize. As far as the bench press goes, are we going reps all the way down the line, or are we really looking at 40-yard dash here?
We don't need all those other measurables, I don't think, from the draft. So, okay, good job. 40-yard time, 40-yard dash. And there were people that said that outside of Darius Hayward-Bay, when Ryan Shazier is healthy, he was maybe second only to hit DHB in terms of speed on the football team. That's how fast he was.
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up. So when I was researching this, and I kind of remember it from a couple years ago, but they did a foot race in, I don't know whether it was in camp or whether it was in practice, and it
was in training camp.
It was Shazier. I believe Archer was involved. I know AB was involved as well. And there may be one other player, that really fast player at the time.
Marcus Wheaton at the time? I don't know.
It was, that is correct. It was Marcus Wheaton, and Shazier beat all of them.
Wow.
I heard he didn't just beat them all. I heard it wasn't even close. But define close when it comes to a race like that. Ryan Shazier I don't know that you're ever going to find a linebacker as fast as he was. I mean, I can't think of anyone measurable that you could say that could outrun some of the fastest wide receivers. So that's kind of almost of an unfair.
4.40 is pretty flipping quick.
Yeah, I'm not going to knock Bush because he couldn't.
That is
beat
really
Shazier's 40.
No, but that is really fast for an inside linebacker. He ran that time faster than a lot of receivers did in this past combine. So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to go ahead and get into some of their stats?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. This is why, if I mentioned, and when we were previewing stuff before the draft, that at first I wasn't very warm to the whole idea of trading up for Devin Bush because of some of these statistics that I found that were a little bit concerning. But the more I just got into him as a player and tried to just say, leave these college stats out of it, the much better I felt about it. But when I was just looking at just their last year in college, for both of them, it was just their junior year, comparing a Ryan Shazier to Devin Bush. They both had 4 pass defense. So that was That was equal. The one difference is Shazier he forced 5 fumbles and Devin Bush didn't force any. So Shazier was also someone who was getting his hands on the ball when he was making tackles. Speaking of tackles, Shazier had 7 sacks while Devin Bush had 4.5. Here's a concerning one. Tackles for loss. Shazier had 23.5 tackles for loss. Devin Bush only had 8.5 tackles for loss. That means Devin Bush only had 4 tackles for loss last year that weren't sacks. But some of this was I mean, they're 2 different players. I mean, they played in the same conference, but sometimes that's hard to tell. Shazier also had a lot more tackles. Shazier had 102 solo tackles his senior year when Devin Bush had 41. So those are some things that when you look at those measurables, that when he was in college, Shazier just had tackle after tackle after tackle after tackle going after the ball. But you also have to remember, how many years ago was that?
5.
Because how much more would you say, even in the Big Ten, has become even so much more of a passing game than even 5 years ago? Do you think that factors in at all?
I do, Dave. And one of the reasons I do is because, look, this is a guy that you're pulling up here because he could drop back into coverage. What has been the problem with Steeler linebackers all along? Since Shazier, nobody's been able to drop into coverage. Shazier could, but also look at I can't remember who was around Shazier at the time, but I can tell you had a guy that went in the 3rd round in Chase Winovich that some people had a first round grade. And Chase Winovich might have been getting more of those tackles for loss while Devin Bush was dropping into coverage. So when you say that it's a different time from 5 years ago, I agree with you completely. And I also agree with the fact that if you're dropping into coverage more than Shazier had to back then, or if you're just looking at defensive schemes have changed. So, I mean, we could compare with numbers all along, but that's just like, taking passing numbers from the 1980s to now, or rushing numbers when there were a lot of guys going for 2,000 rushing yards, and now some teams are struggling to get 1,000-yard rusher and haven't in years. So, I mean, the game has changed. I know it's only been 5 years, but I agree with you.
There is a lot to decipher here, and you can't just look at apples to apples in terms of Ohio State and Michigan and Big Ten football and stuff like that. For me, I look at this and this is kind of where I got the headline for this show, and that is, maybe is Devin Bush going to kind of reinvent the inside linebacker position in Pittsburgh? And the biggest question that I have is, could it be possible that the person that loses playing time isn't Mark Barron or Devin Bush, but is actually Vince Williams? And that's the question that I have. Is, I think that if the Steelers are smart and they want to really utilize their speed and athleticism, they put Barron and they put Bush on the field together, maybe your own little killer bees out there. Let them run. Let them run to the football, make plays. They can both cover. And then if you get in situations where you need a thumper, you take Barron out, put in Vince Williams, or you take Bush out, put in Vince Williams, and have him do his thing in terms of stretching plays and making plays. And like Bryan, as Dave pointed out, he doesn't make a lot of tackles for loss, but that doesn't mean that he's not capable. Bryan, what do you think about that in terms of Barron and Bush being your primary linebacking crew?
Jeff, I was not thinking about that, but you have really opened a gateway in my mind, because now I'm thinking of Vinny Vidi Vici more as a Levon Kirkland type guy, a guy that would have probably played better in the schemes of 15, 20 years ago as a big thumper. Like you mentioned, I mean, yeah, if you're going for speed, that's who you're looking at. Those packages are going to be all different, but those are 2 guys that, I mean, this is a redefined defense now. This is a speed defense, and that's what they're going for. And they've got their king speed guy now. They've got the centerpiece of it as far as quickness. And someone, we talked about going sideline to sideline earlier in the show, and that's what they need. And he is going to be the leader of the defense just for the fact that he's fitting what they're going to do. Those big thumpers, like you called him, in Vince Williams, they're not going to fit in this defense as much as a guy like Barron and a guy like Bush. Good call.
What about you, Dave? What do you think about that?
I'm looking at it. You said that Devin Bush is going to allow them to reinvent the inside linebacker. I don't think so. I think Ryan Shazier is where they wanted to reinvent the inside linebacker. And as soon as he got hurt, there was no answer. Devin Bush is going to allow them to get back to what they were wanting to do. Not because he has to be Shazier, because he's going to be able to play that same style of defense. I talked about it a lot this past season that when you had Ryan Shazier on the field, you had that linebacker that could play the run and play the pass. So what they did this year is they had John Bostic as their run linebacker and LJ Ford as their pass linebacker, but then they had to guess in order to get him on the field at the right time. I actually looked up some of the stats that the Steelers lost with John Bostic and LJ Fort, but they gained in Mark Barron. To say, okay, realistically, if you want to look at, you don't have to worry about Vince Williams because it's still Vince Williams. I don't know that he's going to play 743 snaps again this year like he did last year. But if you look at it and say, hey, just let's say Vince Williams gives you the same play, what do we really need production-wise out of Devin Bush as a rookie to say that Barron and Bush, if they equaled out Bostic and Fort? And it basically came down to this, where I added, subtracted. If you could get 2 pass defense, 2.5 sacks, 41 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, and 6 quarterback hits, that would be, if you got that from Devin Bush his rookie year, then he's already better. He's already better than what they replaced.
Okay.
And that's not much, because Ryan Shazier, if he wouldn't have been injured his first year, would have put up those kind of numbers. But he only played in 9 games, so therefore he didn't quite hit those marks.
To kind of expand on what you said, Dave, I think that Ryan Shazier got the ball rolling in terms of where they saw the defense going. And I think now with the personnel that they have with Barron and Williams and Bush, as well as their safeties, you look at Edmonds as a first-round pick. I think that when you look at that, they're seeing that the ball can now continue to roll. Because even with Shazier, he was never really paired with someone that was, in my opinion, as athletic as a Mark Barron if they were to put them out there on the field together. In my opinion, this is the dollar defense coming to fruition. They wanted to do it last year, but they didn't have the linebackers to do it. Not only was Ryan Shazier or a Ryan Shazier type, air quotes there, not there, but at the same time, you look at these guys and you're like, now they have the personnel. You agree or disagree, Dave?
I completely agree. That's a very good point, that now they have someone else similar that can go along with him. Everything else has changed in that time in the defense. And you are right. I finally feel like the Steelers have the right personnel to fit what they want to do. It's not that John Bostic did a bad job last year. He actually ranked pretty high. The problem is he did not have the skill set to do what they really wanted him to do. Now they have the people there that can do that.
I hate people talk about John Bob, great guy. Everything you've heard about is positive. All I can picture is him lining up across from Keenan Allen on that crucial 3rd down against the Chargers last year. And that's what they're trying to avoid.
But in other words, they need to have the personnel to cover for the defensive coordinator's stupidity, because that was one of the dumbest choices.
Well, he went base. He went base.
No, he said I was playing the run. But if you even look at the statistics, all season they had not run in that. The Chargers had not run in, what was it, a 3rd and 5 or something like that. They had not done one rushing attempt all season in a 3rd and that long or longer. And yet he went and put his run defense out there and had John Bostic on Keenan freaking Allen.
Bryan, any thoughts on all this?
Yeah, you know what? A couple thoughts. First of all, getting back to Vince Williams, I think Ryan Shazier made Vince Williams a lot better. In fact, Ryan Shazier got Vince Williams his contract, if you ask me. He made him into a better player than what he originally was because of what he was allowing Vince Williams to go ahead and do because of the other things that he was doing. I think Devin Bush could come and go ahead and allow Vince Williams to get back to when he really thrived in Pittsburgh. And now he wasn't horrible last year. He was really trying to take over everything last year for the first time and be the signal caller there, and it didn't work out as much. So maybe with more time, he's going to get better. But you have somebody that's going to allow him to get back to what he does. The other thing, we're talking about comparisons between Shazier and we're talking about comparisons with Bush. One thing that we forget about, and I want to tread lightly when I say this, and this has nothing to do with the devastating injury of December 4th of 2017, but Ryan Shazier was very injury prone. He had a lot of injuries way before that, where you check the list, hoping he was going to be out there, and you saw him in a hoodie. And there were, he didn't play full seasons, and it got very frustrating. And the reason it was frustrating is because you knew that was a completely different team when he wasn't in there. When he was in there, I believe it might have been 2015, and I believe it was when they played the 49ers in week 2 and had 15 tackles.
I was just going to interrupt you about that. No, go for it.
He was just absolutely amazing. The very next week, he's in a hoodie. And for a couple of weeks, he's in a hoodie after that. And he just, the defense really suffered without him being there. So the big thing, if we're comparing the two, it's really looking to see who stays healthy, because if you could have Bush staying healthy a whole lot more than Shazier, then you have a better defense.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that. And this is something that Lance Williams in his Yeah, I Said It show actually mentioned. It was the episode where he said why they shouldn't reach for Bush or one of the Devons, essentially. And even though they did, I don't think it's a reach, but they made an aggressive play. And he talked about how people forget, and it's because of the injury, that there were people calling Ryan Shazier a bust. He missed a lot of tackles. He played fast, but sometimes he played reckless. He was injured a lot. How many times did we hear people say, why can't he play safety? You know what I mean? People forget about this. And this is just fan perspective. I'm not saying this is what the team was suggesting or anything like that. But I'll tell you what, let's wrap this up by answering my question from the Steelers burning question. And that is, will Devin Bush live up to the hype in 2019? And Bryan, will go with you first.
This, even if he becomes a bust, this is a great trade because you made the move that you needed to make. This was the year you had to make that move. They were desperate to make this move, and they went ahead and did it. So A+, even if he bust out. He's not going to bust out, though. He's going to make an impact. I predict that he plays a lot in week 1, whether he's a starter or not, and he is full-time starter by week 4.
So you say he lives up to the hype.
He not only lives up to the hype, but he will be in the equation for Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Awesome. Okay, what about you, Dave?
I do want to clean up one thing. I'm so glad Bryan brought up that 49ers game. I was at that game, and not only did he have all those tackles, he was just everywhere. To watch that game was amazing, and it was so disappointing to see him get that pinched nerve that he
shoulder,
missed.
I think, wasn't
it? Yeah,
it?
it was a pinched nerve or something in his shoulder. They thought it was just a stinger, and then here it was a nerve problem. I think he missed the next 4.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, I do not think he's going to live up to the hype in this year, because I think we've already, as Steeler fans, we've already set our expectations basically way too high for him. If he doesn't come out and put up twice as good a numbers as what Shazier did in his Pro Bowl year, then we're not going to be happy, because we don't understand that it takes more than 1 year for a player to be ready. Everyone's going to expect him, to be a juju, to be that guy that just comes out and just explodes their rookie year. And I don't know that he will. I think he's going to do great. I think he's going to live up just great. I think the problem is with us, the fans. I think that we just have it higher than what it should be.
Expectations are high, absolutely. And so we'll see. Bryan, go ahead. You want to say something?
With that being said, Dave, I agree with you and I disagree with you. It's our job to remind everybody that he doesn't have to have Shazier Pro Bowl numbers in his first year. It's our job to let the commenters know that they're being ridiculous and point the stats out to them. So I mean, let them do that, but we'll come back and swat them back down.
To me, I look at it and say that I don't need a rookie to make ridiculous plays. I need him to make the plays that he's supposed to make. So I look at, last year, Terrell Edmonds. He didn't really do anything. He didn't have a lot of splash plays. I think he had one interception. I know he had a sack. I think it was a Phillip Rivers in the Chargers game where they blitzed him off the edge. But he still made the plays. He should have made the tackles. He missed some. That's going to happen. Devin Bush is going to miss some tackles. But if he's where he's supposed to be, covers the way that we all expect him to, then I think he'll be fine. He's only going to get better. So keep that in mind. And I agree with what Bryan said. It's our job to kind of bring everyone back down to earth from time to time. So, anything to add before we kind of segment this from our regular show and go into the either or segment, or are we good to go?
Good to go.
Either or.
All right.
Either or.
I'll go first this time, and it's real simple. Those that know me know I'm a school teacher, physical education teacher, along with running the website and things like that. And today was I looked it up just out of curiosity. Today's like National School Lunch Hero Day, whatever that is. But it made me think, when you were in school, were you buying your lunch or were you bringing a sack lunch? Because back when I was in school, it was just a brown bag. I didn't have a lunch box. It was a brown bag. I'm not giving away because don't have to go elementary, middle, high. Just in general, were you a buyer or were you a packer? Not the Green Bay Packers, packing your lunch. Bryan, we'll go with you first.
Most of the time, I was a packer. Towards the end, food got better in high school, and I got less picky. But yes, I was a packer. Real quick, I got to do it. 3rd grade NFL lunchbox. I had that lunchbox. 2nd grade Fonzie lunchbox. Happy days. Even had an A-team lunchbox in there too that I still have to this day.
Nice. What about you, Dave?
I'm going to split it up a little bit. In elementary and middle, I was probably split maybe half and half. I did not buy my lunch one single day in high school. I packed it every day. I packed it myself. I packed the same thing, and I can still tell you everything that went in my lunch. And it worked for me very well. I've changed it up every once in a while, but I also, how about I had the Masters of the Universe lunchbox. I still have it. Although I need to pass it off to my sister because she collects vintage metal lunchboxes.
Now, a quick follow-up here on this one. Now, my dad, God bless him, he's still alive, but God bless him anyways. He would pack my lunches. Even through high school, he packed my lunch. And every day we would get a little treat in our lunches. And this may shock you now because there's no chance in hell I'm doing this with our kids. It was either a Twinkie or Ho-Hos. Now my question is, if you had to choose in your lunch, do you want a Twinkie or do you want Ho-Hos? Don't bring me this little Debbie stuff, all right? It's Twinkies or Ho-Hos. Bryan, which one are you going with?
Yeah, come on. You're asking me to choose between something called a Twinkie that's phallic-like to something that has ho in the name. Yeah, I'm going Ho-Hos, and it's chocolate. Ho-Hos.
What about you, Dave?
My lunch in high school every day was 2 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, a pack of crackers, and a package of Ho-Hos.
Ah, so you had the Ho-Hos. See, I had both. I would get Twinkies. I'd have Ho-Hos. Every now and then he'd go and get the cupcakes, the the white frosting in the middle. You
Oh,
know what
yeah.
I'm talking about? Yeah, those are pretty good. Like I said, I'm not giving my kids that stuff, but I had it as a kid. So there you have it. So, all right, I'm done. Dave, you can go next because Bryan always brings up the rear. So to
All
speak.
right, mine will be short and sweet. Sorry, yeah, good way to put it. Mine will be short and sweet since we had to go and do 13 draft day trades for 75 minutes. Mine is very simple. It's going to kind of go along with the last one that I did. When we talked about karaoke. As you all know, we are all three singers. Bryan has talked about his karaoke days. Jeff has mentioned his professional training. I have not gone into the detail of my singing background. Let's just say, I was the only person in the audition only choir in college that was not a music major or minor. My family used to travel around and sing, and I am currently in a men's quartet.
Nice.
But it's a very simple
Barbershop?
question.
Do you do barbershop?
It's actually gospel.
Oh, I want to see
There you
Dave
go.
do barbershop. Hello, my baby. Hello, my
Yeah.
dog.
I just
We
think
can
of, I
pull
just think of the
stuff like
scene from
that.
Spaceballs when the alien comes out and he's sings that his entire
Hello, my
family.
baby. Hello, my darling.
Which
Hello, my
was
ragtime
actually
man.
was a tribute to the old Looney Tunes cartoon, which I have on DVD right over there, with the frog. But it's a very simple question when it comes to singing, guys, especially if you're singing a duet or more. Are you melody or are you harmony?
I'm straight up melody. Straight up melody. I've never been other than unless I'm reading music, which obviously I did for a large portion of my life, and I was a baritone, so obviously I can read both treble and bass clef and all that stuff, and I can definitely sing harmony. But if I'm, especially if I'm playing the guitar, it's tough for me to play, sing, and also harmonize. So I'm going to take melody. What about you, Bryan?
First of all, I am tone deaf, and one of my biggest regrets is that I can't sing because I sing in the car all the time. I mean, I wish I sang better. That's if I could trade this luscious hair, I would trade it to be able to sing better. Um, because look, no bald spots. 47, no bald spots. Only genetic lottery I ever won. But if I could have won the singing, I would have. I'd like to say that I harmonize, I melodize, but I don't even know what I do. It's just like it's terrible. But I would say I would go for the harmony.
What about you there, David?
Well, first off, I have to say, if you all have noticed, I've worn a hat in every single podcast we've ever done to cover all my baldness. Just thought I'd throw that out there
Come on, man, just embrace it.
So Bryan gets the hair, Jeff and I get the singing.
Yes.
I am straight up harmony. I am not a soloist. I've personally, I just do harmony. It's so funny because I remember one time my wife comes when I'm practicing. I was actually singing in the shower, and she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm singing the harmony." She's like, "Well, where's the melody?" I'm like, "In my head." So that I can sing the harmony without even hearing the melody. So I am also a baritone, Jeff.
There you
But I
go.
have a big range. I could go as high as tenor two, as low
Nice.
as bass two. I actually sang bass two in college because I was one of the only two people that could reach it. Although I am more natural baritone. But now, not only do we need to do karaoke, we also need to make sure that we pick some good songs that I can bust out the harmonies for you
Well, I'll
guys.
tell you what, I'll bring the guitar and we'll pick some songs and there you go. And Bryan can just be there on the side
Oh
dancing.
no. I'll sing, but then you'll say, "Hey, we're tired. We're gonna wrap it up. I'll leave." You're like, "Okay, get him back out." Brian's gone now.
All right, Bryan, it's your turn. You're cleanup hitter.
Well, I was gonna go with a simple one, going back to a classic from the '70s, with Three's Company. But then Jeff would remind us that he was basically born the year that show went off the air and doesn't know. He can't pick between whether he's a Chrissy guy or a Janet guy. So we're not going to do that. You could go do that in your heads. So I'm going to talk more about, one, this is Jeff's definitely not up his alley, but look, we're all in social media. We all notice the made up days that we have. In May, we've got a couple cool made up days. Coming up in 2 days, we're going to have Star Wars Day. Why? Because it's May the 4th, and May the 4th be with you. But yesterday, we had my new favorite day, which is Timberlake Day. Do you guys know what Timberlake Day is for May 1st?
No.
It's going to be May. You remember the song? It's gonna be May. They have all these memes with Timberlake saying it's gonna be May because of his song with NSYNC way back, where he sang that part. It's supposed to be "It's gonna be me," but it came out May. So, would you rather recognize Timberlake Day to celebrate May 1st, or Star Wars Day to celebrate May 4th?
Do I even have to answer this?
I was going to say Jeff's going to be like, I'm done.
or you know what? I'll add a third one for you, Jeff. The very special 420 day for April 20th.
Oh well, the three. If I'm celebrating one, I'll take 420 out of those two. But I mean, I don't have any pocket protectors, so no Star Wars for me. Sorry.
Then the world has pocket protectors, Jeff.
You guys are wearing collared shirts on a podcast. Okay, you guys are good. You guys pick your Star Wars crap, and we'll be good.
I guess do I even have to say it? Do I even have to answer the question? Yeah. I'm not doing any special celebration. I know last year on May 4th, I was buying my solo tickets at midnight. And everything, missing my daughter's recital to go to the premiere of that.
Oh my god!
Oh, Bryan, I love Star Wars.
Well, wow. honestly, no. My daughter told me that I needed to go. They changed the date of the recital after we got the tickets, and she's like, "Oh no, Dad, you're going. You think it to solo." So, but yeah, we'll go Star Wars Day, I guess.
Well, you know, I was I actually, Dave, this will make you jealous. Jeff, this won't do anything to you because you have no feeling when it comes to Star Wars. But I have been first run to every single Star Wars movie, seen it during its first run, including the original New Hope back in 1977. Saw it in the theater. I was age 5, but I still saw it in the theater. And I could remember vividly going to each and every one. For just that's the way my mind works. I really associate because those were great days. Even like trying to see him first, not even first run, but first screening. And growing up in Johnstown and then moving to here. But for me, I gotta go with Timberlake because nothing makes me laugh more than "It's gotta be May."
Now, you know, the funny thing is, Bryan, you said you were going to do Three's Company. You could have done one that I did know, and I can ask you right now, and that is Gilligan's Island. Are you a Marianne or a Ginger fan? That's a question. What about you, Dave? I mean, which one did you find more attractive?
I am proud to say that I have seen 0 episodes of Gilligan's Island.
You still know the actresses, though, right?
My wife's a redhead. I'm going with Ginger.
Okay, there you go. What about you? What about you, Bryan?
Well, my ex-wife and my daughter are redheads, so I'm going Marianne. But you know, what got me to know Gilligan's Island for the first time was the special TV movie that they came out in the late 70s, early 80s called Gilligan's Island Meets the Harlem Globetrotters.
Oh, yeah.
It was an actual NBC Friday night movie of the week. And I don't know how it happened. Like they got shipwrecked again. Something happened. I don't know. But really interesting. My father-in-law, may he rest in peace, he was good friends with the professor from Gilligan's Island, and his name was, I believe, Russ Johnson. I believe his name was, and even they both passed away within a year of each other, and right before that, they were still talking way up to the very end. So I thought it was really interesting that he knew the professor. So if you have 6 degrees of separation, I have 2 to the professor, and so I have 3 to Marianne.
Very nice. I'll take Marianne as well. So I think that's it. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Bryan brought it up. He brought up Star Wars Day, so it just would not be right unless we gave out a good rest in peace to Peter Mayhew, who passed away. He was the actor who played Chewbacca.
No way. I did not know that. Was that today?
Yep. Well, the news came out today. He actually passed away earlier this week.
So the guy that had 0 speaking parts and just wore a suit.
Jeff, I love you, Jeff. All disrespect, shut up. Just shut up. He stood there gallantly, Jeff.
Man, I'm not laughing at the fact that he's dead. I really am not. I'm just laughing.
He was what, 7'3", I think. Yep.
Hey, he ate tofurkey, Jeff. Is that better? Do you like him now?
I'm sorry.
I do have to say in the live chat that Vodka Drinker called me out for saying that I'd spend my last day on Earth with my family, that I didn't go to my daughter's recital.
Yes, I thought about that too.
Which I did go to the dress rehearsal, and my daughter
doesn't count.
No, she wanted me to go to the movie so that way I could screen it, so that way she could then go. The same weekend.
Oh yeah! I took one for the team. I checked it out so you can see it, honey. It's great. I also ate a tub of popcorn so you could get some to make sure it's okay. I tested it first. Oh, cop out. Nice.
She's 10 years old. I have to screen her movies.
You made me feel bad for saying that I'd party with Motley Crue and Charlie Sheen in Vegas.
No, I knew that was your answer. I was okay with that one.
Oh man, I still would do that.
All right. Well, rest in peace to Chewbacca, and it's a great way to end the show. I'm not gonna be able to sleep tonight. So, all right.
Sure.
All right. So, with that said, this is the end of the show. If you listened this far, God bless you, because you are a patient soul. And make sure you check us out next week on another episode of the Steelers Preview. We'll see you then.